All right. Hey, friends, this is Dale Berkeball, and today we are doing another episode of Living Your Best Life. And so, this is a series that I created a couple months back and try to do every week where I bring a guest on that is interesting and smart or creative or really just an everyday person that has a story to tell. I truly believe we all have a story to tell, and I truly believe we can all inspire other people. And so, yeah, so that's the background of all this. And so, uh, if you have any questions while we're talking, feel free to jump on the in the comments and ask your questions. And if you would, please welcome Samax Amen today. And Samax, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from?
Right. So I grew up in Central Texas. I'm a professional cartoonist. So I draw things for a living, try and make them either fun or exciting. Um and I make comic books and comic strips and other kinds of cartoon style illustration. I uh I went to college at the University of North Texas, where I got a degree in painting and drawing. So I actually am trained in painting also, and so I'm a full time creative person. So I'm at that stage in my business where I do all kinds of different things, um, and so it's like I just pretty much live my life in a very creative way, So like I do caricatures and stuff, like those people who'll come out to events and do caricatures. I do that. And the people there always ask me, "Are you doing this full time?" And I'm like, "Well, I draw full time, but I don't do this full." You know what I mean? Like, so everything I do, people are like, "So do you do that full time?" Because people think of jobs, like when you have a job, it's your job and you do that for 40 hours and
Right.
then you do personal things and hobbies and stuff with the rest of your time. But I pretty much am a like almost like I guess I do sleep every day, so not 24-hour a day creative person, although my dreams are pretty creative. Um yeah, so I just make stuff and entertain people and inform people and inspire people, just anything I can do creatively.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you dabble in some different areas, and it's kind of funny when when that question comes up if you're talking to someone new, kind of, So
Hmm.
just last night I had a new contact, fairly new to me contact, just kind of like, hey, what do you do? And so it just got me thinking last night about how that is an interesting um, conversation starter or just question, I guess, because sometimes we want to categorize like this 40-hour week kind of deal, and that's what we get hit our head in from a societal standpoint. But there's all different ways that you could use your time or what you could do. So anyhow,
Yeah,
that's just
so
kind of a side note.
I worked in call centers and stuff like that before I, broke out on my own. And then after that, I actually didn't like do the responsible thing and build a sustainable business and then have that transition where it's like save up money so that you can do. I um I quit a job and I knew how to make money with art projects. I did a lot of like portraits and stuff like that. And so, but it was very rough going. And so one of the things is that I started to kind of broaden, like because I just needed to work, at that point I just needed income and I was like, I don't really care how I get it, you know what I mean? Like I could have
Mhm.
I've done where I had like a part-time job and then I did art projects and sold art products and stuff. And so the way that I came to think about it was that all I wanted was to monetize my who I am. You know what I'm saying? So it's like And I didn't ignore any. I wasn't trying to ignore anything. So even like the things in my background that I had done for a living, at jobs, the skills that I took away from it, I was like, those skills are transferable. So it's like if I could find somebody to pay me to do this, to pay me to do that. Um, I had the experience of doing contract working as a contractor, and in such as that it would be a project that lasted for a week or 4 or 5 days, and they would pay so much more than they paid when I had a job, like an hourly job. At one point I was doing
Right.
knowledge work, and I was getting paid like as much per day as I got paid per week, and it wasn't more difficult. It was just, that you was presumed to be a specialist and they treated you like a business. So a
Right.
business to business transaction, the dollar amounts were like multiple times more. So that to some degree stuck with me. The first thing I did like that was in 2001, and it just stuck with me. So I did a lot of jobs between then and 2017. The first time when I my last time that I had a regular job was at the end of 2016. And so there's a lot of space in there where it was like kind of
Okay.
spinning around in my mind, like just to think differently about how do I earn money. And that there's been a real kind of transition, and it's still happening, of just everything that you learn about making money, or that I would say for myself, everything that I had learned about making money up until like say the 2000, 2001, I have been unwinding that, like, because business is totally different.
Right.
And it's about like if you can provide something to somebody that solves their problems or that makes them happy in some way, and they have money, you almost don't have to make them pay you. You know what I mean? You just have to let them pay you. And it's like money moves to you. And it's not about how hard you work. And it's not about any of the things that I had attached to making money. And so that's where like I look at like, so I do art direction. I help people with marketing. I do like a lot of things. I really just I coach artists at making money with their art, and one of the things that I tell them is if you apply the creativity that you apply to your art and the whimsy, that you apply to your art to making money, like how does money work, and how do people decide to spend money and let go of what they have? What do you have to offer them for them to pay? How can you make it easy? How can you speed up, that process, or slow it down? And what are the benefits of those? Like those things are like, and they're totally far and away different from like when you're in school. You're mostly in school being groomed to be an employee and only that. Like
Right.
even entrepreneurs, people who become entrepreneurs, when you learn from them, a lot of them dropped out of school or they got in trouble constantly because entrepreneurs break the rules that employees are taught to obey. You know what I mean? So if you're being groomed to be an employee, which you mostly are, a lot of that, and so part of that is like this idea that what is your real job, or what do you really do, versus who are you, and hey, tell me about yourself, which is a totally different, because I make money all the time. Sometimes I make money when I'm not even doing anything. Um, and people are happy to give me money. I don't get like people going, "Oh, you're cheating me because you didn't work that hard."
Oh, yeah.
And that was something that um the sacrifice of money, like money is like you have to sacrifice yourself for it, is why a lot of artists struggle, because they enjoy making their art. So they don't really feel like they deserve to get paid, you know,
Right.
or they think that money is, you trade your time for money. So it's like something that you're good at doing. When you think about it as a trade of time for money, the problem with that is the better you get at what you're doing, the faster you can do it, and
Right.
the better results you can get in less time. And so if you're still attaching it to your time, you're cheating yourself. But how do you negotiate with somebody when you're getting better and better at what you're doing if they already believe that they're paying you for your time, you know?
Right.
And so, and then it's like there's just so many wheels within wheels when it comes to that stuff. But it's like funny because I sometimes feel like awkward, like trying to explain to somebody that I know is asking me what my job is, you know,
Right.
like how do I make money, or like every day is different. Like every day I make, you know, it's different. Every week is different. They're like, when do you get paid? I'm like, when do I need to get paid today? I'll get paid today. You know, I get paid as often and as much as possible. You know, so sometimes money is not coming. It's far in between, right? I'm spending more money on some days that I'm making, but then all of a sudden there's money, um, and so it's I that's where like conversations about creativity are always fun to me because I live very creatively, you know, beyond just the fact that I'm a creative person um, in an easy to understand sense, you know, because I doodle and stuff. But I a funny thing, like how I got to selling things. One of the things I do, as you know, is I make t-shirts, which I am not wearing a t-shirt that I made today. That's a oversight on my part. But I how I got into it is like during the MySpace era, right? Uh I don't know if you remember when MySpace first came out, you could only have like 8 photos on your profile or something like that. When I got on there anyway.
Right.
So I would curate, I would meticulously curate what photos I had on there because I was promote my art. So one of them would be of me, you know, so I'd be a human, and then I would have 6 or 7 carefully selected pieces of art which no one cared about. Like it was no one cared. And then they expanded to 12 photos, then to 24, and then like unlimited photos you could put on there. It was great. So one of the things that happened is at that time I was working in a call center and I was constantly doodling whenever I was taking phone calls. I would be doodling. And so if I drew something I really liked, I would take a picture of it with a digital camera because smartphones were not in my life yet at least.
Right.
And then I would upload it on MySpace later. And so what I found was that people were engaging, really having a lot to say about my sketches, where like the paintings and finished drawings, nobody cared about. But
Mm.
like the sketches that I would draw, like where it would be like a doodle or something, people loved them. And there was one doodle it was like a profile of a woman with the afro. Um, and it was just a sketch that I drew with a ballpoint pen on the back of a memo. And somebody said, "Well, you should put that on a T-shirt. I'll buy it." And me being how I was, there was a print on demand site. I put it on there the same day, and then put the link under their comment. I was like, "Okay, here's the link, so you can buy it." And then, like, you know, I went about my business, and the next day, like within a week, I had sold like 20 of them.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean, it was explosive, and that I always tell that story because that changed my life. You know, like I don't. One thing, um, and the more I learn, the more right that I feel about it. So if I'm wrong, I'm probably never gonna figure it out. Um, I don't I don't try to guess what people want. I just give them as everything. I just offer people everything, and then I let people pick. I read this book after that called The Long Tail, which was
Mhm.
about is like a kind of predicting like how Google and Amazon would change the market. And I don't know how far along it was, if this person was very prescient or if it was enough evidence that it was obvious. But it made sense to me that the big business would be in people be in selling a whole lot of different things and selling some of a lot of things instead of trying to guess what are people gonna like and trying to have a hit every time. You know,
Right.
so sometimes what happens a lot with me is I get into these, you know, into a sprint where I'm just making a lot of like images for t-shirts and just like t-shirts designs with words or whatever. And I just will be posting them and I have email, you know, list. And so I'll email them out or I'll do drawings and I'll offer it on many different products through print on demand. and just offer them. And like for a while, no one will buy, and then I'll start getting sales, but it's not always the same thing selling a lot. It's different things selling, and I never can predict like what things are going to take off. It's not like, so on my T Public shop, the most popular things is the top 10 images. Probably half of them are just words, block letters, or like a font. Like I didn't work hard to design it or whatever, with just words. So it'll be like a quote from a famous person, or a quote from a movie, like obscure. I think the number one selling one I got right now is a quote from New Jack City.
Mm.
So, and it's not like it's we all we got, like that one. I think that's my top selling shirt on there now. And then like a drawing of the care of like a obscure character superhero, and then like it's very it's all. The number two design right now is a ghost that's a cat, and it has like a word balloon above his head, and it's in Chinese. It says in Chinese, "I am Typhoon Cat Ghost." I swear to God. There, and that is an inside joke that I don't know if everybody that buys it read the blog post that I wrote about that, or if they just thought it looks cool or whatever, and they don't even get it. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it doesn't matter. Like that's the nature of the internet. You know what I mean? Like it's like, so anyway, I could talk about that all day, but um that's not the biggest money making in my business, print on demand, but it's fun, you know, and
Yeah.
and like people always argue with me about whether it will work, or they talk about, well, these shirts are the quality of them, I don't know, and da da da, like people, like other artists or other people. And I've been doing print on demand since the early 2000s, and people have been telling me it doesn't work while I'm making money the whole time. So like
Nice.
that's the nature. Like um one of the things about being creative in anything, even if it's just your lifestyle or whatever, is
Mhm.
that you have to be able to be cool with people not agreeing with it, because
Right.
there's set ways that you're supposed to do stuff, you know, quote unquote, supposed to do stuff. And you could do that or you could not do that. You know what I mean? Like it's fine either way. Um, but you know, one of my you just want to just live your life, just be happy or whatever. And um when 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 issues arise, you can become obsessed with the issues, or you can find a solution and then be obsessed with your solution, you know.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I learned to really appreciate about mindfulness and stuff, is like the ways that it's very solution based, and it's very kind of, when problems are happening, it's getting me to take a break from the problem so much, where it's I think if you're not mindful, like whatever is loud is what you pay attention to. And
Sure.
people who don't like what you're doing get louder, and just because they get louder doesn't mean that you have to make your life be about them. And I think that a lot of people don't know that. I have a daughter, and I remember she was um in like kindergarten, and at a new school, first grade rather, at a new school, and they were taking the kids around and showing them the library.
Mhm.
She got in trouble. So just so I don't bury the lead, she got in trouble because uh the librarian tells them, okay, you can check out, 5 books, let's say. I don't remember how many books they could check out. And then one of the other little girls, my daughter, she's like, I'm gonna check out that book, I'm gonna check out that book, whatever. And then the other girl goes, well, you can't check out, all those books. And she knew that it was less than 5 books. She says, well, the librarian said we could check out 5 books. And the girl was like, no, you can't. You can only check out one book. And the girl tried to walk away. And so she grabbed the girl's arm, like, hey, the librarian said we could check, like she was trying to confirm, like this person was saying something wrong. And she was like trying to confirm. And so she got in trouble, of course, for
Mhm.
grabbing this little girl. And like we were talking to her, and she was just like, but she was wrong. you know? And I was like, but could you check out, how many books did you want to check out? She said 4. So could you check out 4 books? Yes. It's like, so does the other girl being wrong about that have anything to do with restricting your ability to check out books? She was like, okay, you're right. I understand. She didn't say you're right, but she's like, I understand. Like,
Right, right,
focus on what matters, and some stuff doesn't matter as much, and that's one of the things that just being able to say, okay, but this is your life though. As far as for your life, what matters? Does this matter to you or not?
right.
And if it doesn't, it's okay to just let it be however it is. Just let it be like that. Because it doesn't, it's not hurting you for it to be there. Or you can accept it. You can get on with and have everything you want in life, even though this other thing is not what you want it to be.
Right, right. Interesting. Yeah. So I guess one of the questions that I always ask people when I bring them on for this show is, what does a hella good life mean to you? So you want to share a little bit of your thoughts on what that means to you?
Yes. So I know the kind of the etymology or whatever, if that's the right word, of hella. It's like I have a lot of family in California. They use this word all the time, right? So it's like an amplifier. It's like good is good, but if something's hella good, like that's real good. You know what I mean? So it's like, in the context of of what you know of what you're doing, it's like it's about you can improve the quality of your life sometimes just by understanding yourself better without changing any details. So you haven't gotten everything you wanted yet. This concept, I don't know uh if it comes from like Buddhism or what, but like that your pain is like everybody experiences pain, but suffering is optional. And a lot of times it's the suffering, the way you're thinking about something that makes it suffering, you know?
Right,
And so, like, in the same way, like, if you're what you think about your life is without changing any of the details, right? Can improve the quality of your life. Earl Nightingale said, I think it was Earl Nightingale said, attitude is the magic word, you know? And so just deciding that how to reframe like things that are happening and putting things in the right context is a choice that you have to make. And going from
right,
being like a victim, that life is just happening to being an owner of the life that you're living, and saying, okay, as an owner, it's like when you rent versus when you own a house. Like, if the plumbing is bad, you're responsible for fixing it, for getting it fixed, as opposed to you just call somebody and complain until they fix it, you
right.
know. And when you're the person who's responsible to fix it, like, one, you become a lot more patient about the time it takes to get it fixed. You know what I mean? You're like, how bad is this problem really? And then it's like, okay, what steps does it take? And just being able to have, so the overall, what I'm saying is like just taking ownership of the life that you're having lets you go to a much better, you know what I mean, before you change anything. And I do think that taking ownership of your life and having a good attitude and stuff like that does give you more power to change and improve your life. But before that, like, because some things are going to be outside of what you can put your hands on and change. But
Hmm.
being able to say, that's okay. I have ex-girlfriend who she would make fun of me and say I'm always saying and that's okay, like at the end of, I'm like, you don't agree with me. I don't need you to be right. I mean, I don't need you to be wrong. It's okay. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and that's because I used to have such a horrible attitude. And I wouldn't have said that at the time. I thought I was just being realistic. But a lot of times people who think of themselves as realists are actually just pessimists. Like they, because they only see the bad things realistically, not the good things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like optimism uh isn't less realistic than pessimism. Like optimism and pessimism are both like choosing what to see, you know. Um, but a lot of times people, they start out with their ideals and then they're disappointed and they become pessimists, but they think that that's realistic because they're responding to things that really happened. But that isn't exactly, that's not exactly the same. So anyway, I think it's just, that's one of the things that resonated with me about Hella Good from was just that I was on that track, of like seeing how to um take ownership of my life and then go, okay, what am I really looking at, as opposed to being emotional. So the first step for me was kind of like just detaching from my emotions or whatever, uh which was a necessary step. But then to be able to use that detachment, not to just kind of fall back into being like a person that was disassociated from life, but to
Hmm.
be a person that was able to be fully happy, in a moment where not everything is perfect, or like where being able to be happy without guilt, or be happy without like um people, like when you come from a religious background, there's generally a lot of guilt associated with um like motives to do stuff. It's a lot of guilt. And that's one of the things I like about Hella Good, because it starts with hell. So I know that people are gonna be like, oh, like sometimes people are like, oh, that's what I was like, that's funny to me, because I was a very, very serious uh Christian person, like very like devout. That's the word. Um, I mean, I got over it or whatever, but it's like I think everything doesn't have to be so serious. And I mean, one thing that I like about the name that it implied to me was that while there's a lot of depth to you and to what you're doing and what you're teaching and what you're kind of modeling, it's not like that serious, like, and that's one of the things that I like about or that I found useful in mindfulness is like it's deep, but it's not serious. Like you can laugh things off, or you can say, well, it is what it is, like to something where people want. I remember one of the questions you asked in the group was, and I've been talking to people about it ever since, was can you let go of the need for people to be right or wrong? In a sense that it's like, right now polarization is like a big thing, and tribalism is what I call it. Like, just like, are you
Right.
in or are you out? Are you one of us or are you one of them? And these people are doing it wrong and these people are doing it right. And I was like, one of the kind of thought people that I follow, she would say, if you need the whole world to change so that you can be happy, which is is what people do. Like they need everybody to change, you know. And she's like, you're in deep doo doo, because you can
You
if you
are.
if you have two people that you're trying to make happy, you can't get those two people to agree with you and with each other. So if you're trying to make people happy, it works fine if there's only one person, because you can bend as much as you need to for one person. So you're married and you have kids, right? So you were fine, but then your kids, man, like now you got kids and a spouse, you're screwed. Like if it's all about making them happy, because you
Right.
can't make people happy, and those are the people that you have the most motive to make happy. What are you going to do with the whole world full of people, you know? And so,
Right.
like, my response whenever you said that, it was funny because it was like a mile of comments of people going, nope, can't let go of it, because we need to make these other people are so dangerous and so bad and so whatever. Like, everybody recognizes that tribalism and polarization is doesn't work to anybody's advantage except for people that are trying to manipulate them. But in the same sentence, like everybody defaults to, and everyone else, we are right and they're wrong, so they need to be
Right.
changed, or else the country is doomed, right? And it's like, I'm just like, no, and it's funny because whenever all of this kind of high energy stuff was starting, I think like kind of even like with politically the kind of Tea Party movement, it was just very like boom, 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 and then every people on others, but like very against, and you got to do, but it's like I grew up around these people and around people, and I was fine, like they didn't, I was fine. I grew up around all kinds of dangerous people. When you look at them from the outside, those people are dangerous. Something needs to be done about them. And I was fine. And I've always been able to kind of get along with different kinds of people if we could just come up with ground rules for how we interacted with each other. And I found that most people in the world will behave, even if they're, they totally object. They'll let something little slide, how they totally object to something about you or your politics or your beliefs or whatever. But then after that, after they've had their little, their little mission statement be heard, then they just move on. Because it's like everybody goes to work and, drives in traffic or whatever and does all that, it'll be all right. And that's why I was like, so that was I when my answer was like, no, I do it every day. I let people be who they are every day. It's don't got nothing to do with me. I get um I mean, man, as a black person, like, so I make comics and I'm a blogger and I do different stuff. So on social media, you get like people that want to parse, if there's violence in like comics with black people and violence, it's like, or am I teaching violence, and am I teaching, because I make comic books, superheroes, punching each other in the face. What's wrong with that? It's not even real punching, but it's like, am I teaching it? Am I doing this or whatever? And then, so I had somebody will pop up, go and try, and it'll be a bank robbery in a comic book, and I'll post a, and then somebody will, show up talking about, gun statistics in Chicago or whatever, and how, and I'm like, and I will with no remorse say that has nothing to do with me. Like, I get why you're concerned about that, but I promise that my comics are not, nobody's not like, yeah, I would never shoot anybody. Oh, this is a comic book. That's interesting. Oh my God, I need to kill everybody. That's just not that's just not how it is. And I mean, I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? And so like what's happened a lot is like the social movements or whatever, that have risen up in, the last 10 or 15 or 5 years, like however you're measuring it. It's like the pushing the idea, like unreasonable logic into everything, is part of what they do. So it's like,
Mhm.
I'm not equipped to like disarm all of that. So I'm, if somebody believes that or whatever, I mean, good for them. Like I don't, but I'm not gonna stop everything I'm doing because of that. And I know that whenever I get fired up about something, it's only reasonable that other people would not stop everything they're doing because of I'm fired up about. So, I arrived at that, you know what I mean? It's fine. The pursuit of my, like how can I make my life good, or feel good. Yeah.
The funny thing there is, so I was always, I don't know, for a decade or so, being sort of passionate about this whole idea of be the change you want to see in the world,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And so after kind of going down that rabbit hole for a while, like trying to ponder and reflect on how I can, what I can do to try and make the world a little better and stuff like that. Really, what it came down to was the only thing I can do is work on this guy. And
Right,
if I can be the best me that I can be, then I am changing the world, because anyone that's connected to me is going to have a better time, and
right,
that sort of thing. And so, um, so it's interesting as you're talking about like the multiple people trying to make them happy and all that stuff. We can't. There's only
right,
so much stuff that we can control. And just like you mentioned, in trying to change someone's ideas or opinions or whatever, you know, can you do that? Maybe, but are people so stuck in their ways that it's going to be very difficult? A lot of times, right?
Buckminster Fuller. I'm gonna mess this quote up, but it's profound. The way to if you don't like a system, the way to beat that system is not to press against it and fight it, but to create a superior system that makes that system obsolete. That's much harder work. That's much harder work. And people shirk hard work when it comes to thoughts and beliefs and stuff. Like I said, I was a very, very devout Christian for a long time. One of the things that so I know what I was hardcore, okay? So I know what it's supposed to be. And what you see a lot is not what it's supposed to be. What it's supposed to be is that you love yourself, God, and your neighbor with such intensity, and that you're having a good time. You're having a hella good life without the resources, like, but you are generating such a good life for yourself without breaking all the rules and doing evil, that other people who are miserable because the way they're doing things is making them miserable because they're going against, the order that God has set up, right? By the clarity of your example, they're asking you, what are you doing and how are you doing it?
Right.
Now, let's forget the fact that that doesn't leave room for you to do evil, like to oppress people and take their rights away from them, and then or create systems that oppress them and take their rights away from them, or advocate for things that oppress people and take their rights away. But also that you should be doing all of this without any hatred for anybody, because it's not called for. And you should be doing all of this with um without fear that you are going to become a minority, of people who do what's right and everybody else is wrong. You shouldn't fear that. So it's like the core components of that goes across like that. That's good business. You know, love yourself. The only thing that you can really affect, is yourself. That's one of the things that in kind of mindfulness as a solution, or like, why is this happening? Well, it's because of the way you're thinking. That's what a lot of it. um you want to change results, change your thinking. And at first that you don't want to hear that, because you don't want to be the reason, because you've been brought up in the system that we live in the mass culture that we have, that it's always someone else to blame. It's always those
It's
other
your
people.
fault. You-
It's always those other
right.
people. And if you could just get them to do whatever, everything will be fine. Or it's always something about the access to stuff that you have or don't have. So if you could get access to more belongings, more technology, more privilege, more benefits, then you would be better. Well, the ability to do those things can be impeded by someone else. If I try and change your mind about something, you can just decide not to change your mind, even if I'm right and it.
Right.
You know, if it's about resources, people see you getting resources, they can gang up and try and interfere with your ability to do stuff.
Right.
When it comes to political, all these action, like, people can organize, but if you decide that the bad news is you're the problem anyway, you know but the good news is that if you're the problem, you can actually change you. Like, you can decide, like, even if you don't know how, I'm going to change this about myself. I'm going to change it. I'm the problem. I'm going to change it. I'm going to
Right.
do things differently. You can't make your kids do stuff that you want them to do. If you wanted your kids to work
Right.
out, if you wanted your spouse to work out, you can't make them do it. They'll, like, limp their body as you drag them around or whatever. But you can make yourself get up. You can make yourself stand up or sit. You know, you can train yourself to get the results that you want. If you have like subconscious blocks happening, you can drag yourself to a therapist and get help with it, or you can read self-help books. When you're the problem, you're the solution, and you have control over you. Now, the
Right.
thing about all those problems that we were talking about, your best chance of being able to ever influence anybody is to be a better version of yourself than they are of themselves. So it's like if they see that you can do something easily that they can't do, they want to know. Like, you don't have to talk to them, you don't have to chase them and convince them. They're mad at you for not telling. Dale, what are you hiding? How did you
Right.
do it? I don't appreciate that you've known all this time, like, how to do this, and you didn't even tell me. Oh, well, you know what, I'm sorry, person. Here's the information. Well, thank you. Give it. Now they have it. you know and same thing like with business. If you can solve problems better than your competitors, you're Ramit Sethi says, if you can solve somebody's problem or relieve their pain, then price is trivial. Like, they're like, well, especially like when you know people that got money, and they know that you have a solution. It's just a matter of awareness, like
Right.
them being aware of who you are, knowing who you are, liking you enough, trusting you enough to pay. But again, that stuff goes out the window if they know that you can solve a problem. They don't even have to trust you. They don't have to know. I tell people all the time, I used to have dreadlocks, right? And I got drug tested a lot at every job I ever had. Just a lot of drug testing. I never done
Hmm.
drugs in my life, but I got drug tested a lot at jobs. Like, they just, if you look at jobs, they want to do a you apply for a job, you got to do a background check, you got to do this and that. They want to check your credit. Like, what does my credit got to do with my ability to do a job? But start a business. I've never had nobody ask me nothing. I could do drugs every day if I wanted to. All they care about is, can I do the job? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? If I'm stealing from people, they might want to know. But that's but it's like, if you can do something, and in business, like, people don't care about, they don't care about they don't care about all that, because they don't want to control you. They just want their result.
Right.
Once a person is there, they're buying the solution from another business. I don't know exactly what the difference is in people's minds, but it's like, I've never had, like, I do every now and then, I'll do something where I'm going to do something at a school. So they want to make sure I'm not a child molester or whatever. But
Right.
other than that, you know, there's no, like, I actually don't even have my, like, real last name sometimes on stuff, so they didn't even find out I'm it's a DBA, so it's like, they don't even, what I'm saying, like, it's a totally different world. And I tell people that all the time. One of the fun things about America is that we have this, you know
Oh, we just lost that. Let's see if I can get it back. Hold on a minute. Okay, well, bear with us for a second. Let me see if I can get some X back on here. Well, he's hopefully trying to get back in. Send him a message here. We'll just look. So Jacqueline commented here, so I'm just going to highlight her again. And she says, creativity is a huge part of enjoying your day-to-day life. And man, that is so true. Okay, so Mex is trying to get on here. We'll see him just a second here. And she also said, and this was earlier in the conversation, she also said, exactly, apply pressure, your passions, and it'll bless you. Do what makes you happy. Man, that is so true. Thank you for commenting and sharing your thoughts today, Jacqueline. If there's anything else, if we get some eggs back on here, we can you want to share other thoughts, please do. If you have any other questions, also, let us know. And okay, I think we are. I think okay. Let's see. Welcome back, man. Technology, it's a beautiful
Yeah,
thing.
we live in the age of wonders. We live in the age of wonders. It's all good.
Oh man, I got to tell you, so much of what you're talking about are things that I love and enjoy. But I got to tell you that Buckminster Fuller quote, man, that's like my jam. I'm
Yeah.
always trying to figure out how can we create that system that is just so great that it obsoletes the
And
broken one
the
that we
thing
sometimes have.
about it is it works. It's like big scale things, but I mean sometimes it's just like very small scale things. Like when you're complaining about the way something is in your own life, like sometimes it's because you were supposed to make something, but instead you went with how it was. There's an example I one of my mentors, like he talks about radical ownership, with your business and with your life or whatever. And it's like when you teach people about like those things I was talking about, like being in like an employee versus a doing freelance work, and how it's more empowering and stuff. So artists a lot are very underpaid generally, and the reason that they're underpaid is because they don't take that much responsibility. It's like people focus on, well, these clients and business owners are evil and they're just trying to take advantage of us and they're an enemy you have to overcome. Well, yeah, they're all that, right? But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like they're not like Hitler evil. They're just like maybe a little bit selfish. Like they got their own concerns, and so they don't your concern is not their primary concern. So you have to take ownership of the situation from the beginning. So there's this saying I used to say all the time, look, I'm not a vending machine. Just put a coin in me and artwork comes out. Right. I was very
Right.
like stand up for myself about it. But then, I had to conclude that the client's not an ATM machine. Like I don't just walk up to it and press buttons and money comes out. Like if you if you make a way, so one of the like kind of cheat codes that the mentor I had, because he was teaching freelancers a lot of different kinds of people, not just artists. And he said one of the things, if you learn to have empathy for your clients, you will eliminate a lot of your competition, because most people don't care. It's not that they're trying to cheat people, they just don't care. They don't care what's worrying the client. It's the client's job to worry about their own concerns. um but he's like, look, if you can develop empathy for your clients or for whoever's paying you, you know and you look at it like you're saving them, like you're helping them, and you're doing it because you like them, not because they're the only, where you could get money from. And and he was right. So that was what, like, one of those, he's probably the person I got that Buckminster Fuller quote from. But he's right, because it's a much better way to do business. Now I didn't know anything about doing business. I always assumed, and like a lot of people probably was trained, that business people, i.e. rich people, because they're rich if they have businesses, right? That business people are selfish and greedy and they're the cause of every problem, and the existence of a bad business person means all business people are bad and they're whatever. Well, when you're working for people like that, it's going to come across in the way that you interact with them, even if it's in very subtle ways,
Right.
the contempt for them, you know. And so, they need your services and they know it. So they just kind of ignore that, but it's in the back of their mind. They could tell by the way you ask for a raise or the way you ask for anything that you don't care about them. You just want more money, or, and I learned how to look at it from their perspective and to ask more questions about what would make them want to do what I want them to do? Not just am I in a position to strong arm them, but like what would make them want to do that? And then do it. You know what I mean? Like before I ask for more money, before I ask for the next thing, if this project's over and I want the more work from them and they didn't offer it to me, like do something for them. You know what I mean? Something that's easy for me. Like don't make it hard, because it's not about the hard work, it's about the value, you know, and getting a better, just being better. That was hard for me, like just to design myself as a business or my services or whatever you want to call it, so that it was easy for them to do what I wanted, which was to give me more money or to hire me again instead of hiring someone else, things like that. And I think that in your life, I'm divorced. So if I got married again, I'd be much better at it. If I could be talked into getting married, I would be much better at it. You know what I mean? And so like even if you have a problem with with your children or with your spouse or whatever, like fighting the system that's in place is not the solution. The solution is, what can I do that it will make it easy for everybody to take the steps in the direction that I want. That to me, that's the core of that. Be the change that you want to see. Is that
Sure.
you make it so attractive to other people, because people are not making decisions like like demonic evil people are, in fiction, because it's easy to, like, especially old fiction, like you have people like Dr. Evil, like nobody would call themselves Dr. Evil. Like most people are the good guy in the story, but they just are looking out for themselves and their own interests. So one, do you understand that person's interests? Do you understand the interests of the person, and can you
Right.
get on the same side with that person? So another, I don't know the quote, but another thing is that only win-win deals are sustainable. So make all your deals so that they're win-win. The
Right.
other person wins. So if from their perspective, they might think they win and you lose. From your perspective, you might think you win and they lose. But everybody knows that they win, you know. And sometimes I'll, with prospects, I'll say, look, or clients, I'll say, I'm only going to do this if we can both win. Like I don't want to beat
Right.
you at this, because that leads to kind of resentment down the road. That's the thing, it's just a superior design. So, you know, I got trained early in my life as a salesperson to beat people selling. You know what I mean? Like to kind of trick them or manipulate them. You find that a lot in religious training, like when people are learning to be, a pastor or a whatever, like how to win arguments, right? If you think that you have the truth on your side, you should not need to win. It's
Right.
just a matter of just being, you should be passionate and loving all the time. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing of, you can love somebody and they can disagree, and you give them the space to be who they are, but then you live in such a way that it's superior. Now, the question is like, are you living in a way that's superior? You know what I mean? Or are you just wanting to force them so that you can go back to feeling secure, that there's not some kind of enemy out here? And that's the way that people operate a lot, because we just are subjected to so much fear-based um paradigms, like the world is this. And like right now, there, all the political discourse is about the end of democracy. Like we're just on the brink of the end of democracy.
Right.
And it's like, okay, that's possible, right? Like it's so, I don't need to hear that anymore. I just need to know, like, what's the best, let's think of what's the best way to do it. Because a lot of why the people who are trying to end democracy are trying to end it is because they think they can't convince people of the rightness of what they want to do. They've given up, and they don't have to. They shouldn't have had to, but they just have. And so they went this route of, let's just undermine our systems. Well, the thing about it is, if democracy like ends or whatever in 2022, like, or 24, whenever this election happens, and all democracy falls apart, we're all still going to be alive, and we're all still going to be doing whatever we do. And if democracy is better, we ought to be able to get it back, if people would like it better. But, maybe they wouldn't. And we'll just live somewhere that has, some kind of hopefully benevolent, autocracy or whatever. Like I only got one vote. So it's like, that's a thing, like just that as a way of life, dude. Like to me, that Buckminster joint, like that's a way of life because you
Right.
can, you don't have to win arguments with people when you make something better. You know,
Right.
they'll lie to people that they're not, helping you. They're not buying. Like if you make a diet pill that works better or a food that works better or if you make the best whatever and people will cross to the wrong side of the tracks to get the better stuff and lie about it. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't that was one of the things that when I saw it, um I always refer to like different guys like that I've learned stuff from as business dudes. Like I'm like, this person's a spiritual business dude that like they have these ideas that are like spiritual ideas, but they apply them in business. And it's like if it works really well, it works really well, And that's that Buckminster Fuller one. That's his name is Buckminster Fuller, which helps, I guess, to remember anything you heard from him. Because it's Buckminster. But yeah, I mean that's one of those that I find is real easy to apply. A lot of times what I find is that you have to give people a quote from somebody that's really smart, but don't say that who it's from. Just say it to them and it blows their mind and they're not distracted by the fact that they may or may not like the person who said it. You know? That's one of the fun things. It's like I used to quote people because I felt like it was wrong to not give the person's name who I got the idea from. But then I found that people wanted to argue with me about something else that person did. Oh, well, that person was, he beat his wife. I'm like, I don't care. It got nothing to do with me. Like, I'm just saying, this right here is right. I am
Right.
not endorsing beating wives or husbands for that matter. Don't beat people.
Don't
But
beat people.
don't beat people. That's a platform. But yeah, so I mean, I think um that's like it's just like the be the change thing. It's like complaining is very limited and limiting. Actually, there was a study. I wish I had the citations and stuff, but it talked about how when you complain chronically, it actually shrinks the part of the brain that solves problems. You know, and one of the things that I saw with social media, for example, and another kind of similar thing is that creative people like artists and writers doing things like posting on social media, like writing on social media, or doing things to kind of get people to like your posts or whatever, or like posting memes and stuff, it it pings the same part of your brain that making art pings. So it's like a lot of times people think that they're being creative, but they're just sharing memes all the time. But they're not. It's like empty calories. Like if you eat nothing but cotton candy or whatever, like it might, or potato chips, it might make you feel like you ate, but your body did not get the nutrients it needed to get. So um, obviously there's people that have real kind of chronic, emotional problems, but sometimes the kind of emotional problems are when you have a drive or a calling or an urge and you're trying to satisfy that urge with something that's empty instead of doing what you're supposed to do. Um, which is the thesis of the movie Unbreakable. Which I always remember, like it's like he was supposed to be a superhero, and that's why he was depressed. You know, and then when he started, when he after he beats up the guy or whatever, the evil guy, then he felt fine. And everything, it fixed his marriage, it fixed everything. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it is something like that. Like we have to pursue the things. So if you feel so strongly about something, and if it's a problem, sometimes this can be a puzzle, right? Because being problem focused has done enough for people that they think that's the way you fix problems. But so a lot of times when I'm in meetings with people, like they want to talk about the problem for the whole meeting, I'm like, well, what's the point? What's the solution? And they're like,
Right.
well, you can't solve it because da, da, da. I'm like, well, if you can't solve it, I don't want to talk about it. You know what I mean? But if it's like, what do we want to happen? What do we want? Let's predict the future that we want. Let's project ourselves into the future that we want, not just, sit here and find more of the problem. you know a lot of times what makes a problem harder to solve is that people are more excited about finding more of the problem than they are about finding solution. And it's like,
Yeah.
when people are leadership leading you, they have reasons to do that. You know what I mean? Like, they have reasons to focus. The media, if you're a news person, you have reasons to focus on problems, you know,
Right.
because
Right.
focusing on a problem is more, um, arousing. You know what I mean? Like, it makes people go, oh, let's talk about it. That's something dangerous. I need to know about it. But uh, that's where ownership matters. Because if I don't own the situation, then I don't really care. Finding a, like, I always say, like, when you're trying to make the transition from being um an employee to a freelancer, an employee, if they do something wrong, like, let's say you're late for work, all you have to do is have an excuse that gets you out of trouble. Or if you didn't, if you can tell your boss, well, it was the freeway or it's whatever, it's like, okay, so you're not fired, you're not, in trouble. And now you're done. Whatever problems your lateness created are not your problem. They're your boss is dealing with it, your supervisor or whatever. But when you are if you behave like that as a freelancer, you won't have any repeat business because they just won't like you. They won't even necessarily know why. But there's just a lot of excuses,
Right.
toxic to doing business. And so being more like, okay, I don't if something I've done wrong has created a problem and the client hasn't found it yet, I don't even tell them about it until I have some suggestions of how I can fix it,
Right.
you know because I'm like, I have to solve these problems, or else he's going to remember me as being a source of problems, and nobody buys problems.
Right.
People buy solutions. And that was something that I think, just being so much of my creativity as a young man was devoted to, um, one, making excuses, like making the most convincing and award-winning excuses that I could possibly make, and then also, like, creating like the most entertaining understanding of the problem. you know like when you talk to your friends and they make you laugh when they talk about problems, like that, being like that. you know my boss is so stupid. How stupid is he? And so, like, that kind of thing is like, how entertaining can you be in the kind of creating, and again, the thing is that you're kind of creating more of the problem because you're cementing the problem in your mind. So
Right.
when I started listening to more of those kind of business dudes or whatever, Earl Nightingale, people like that, it's like it was so weird to me, like the way that they thought. But I was like, I need to understand this. It
Yeah.
was like magic or something, because they were like, look, there's solutions out there. Um, I remember I came into this idea that all the technology that exists now that's new, it existed in the infinite past because it's all based on the physics, and how does reality work? Like a cell phone. Cell phone technology, the technology was in the environment, but people just hadn't discovered it yet. So the way that microwaves work and the way that signals work and frequencies, it was all there, but people had to discover it. So I say that to say, like, solution focus is just a much better use of your time as far as like a system of living, like being a person that solves their own problems at the very, obviously I'm not an inventor, what I'm saying, but just on a micro level, like, getting a better understanding of how my life is going and how I would like it to go, you know, and just it opened up this idea that's like, well, what do you want to happen? Like, what would you like to do? You know,
Right.
and that's an option. I know that you could just decide you wanted to do something, and that the solution to how you could do that exists. if you have the like resource, if you can be resourceful enough to find it, you know. And there's a lot of ways to do that. It isn't doesn't mean I have to solve all the problems myself. I might just ask somebody, like, who do I know that knows about these things that I could turn to and say, hey, this is what I would like to do. Is this possible? And if they're like, nah, it's impossible, then just ask somebody else. Like,
Yeah.
okay, so my wife will say, you're delusional, like you think you can do anything you want. And I was like, how many times have people told you you couldn't do something that you later on did? Like, there's no reason to assume that you can't do what you want to do. you
Right.
know it's how hard will it be, and how long will it take, and all of that, and how many times you're going to find um, something that doesn't work before you get there. I can't tell you that, but that doesn't mean it can't be done. Like, a lot of times people, they're at the questions that they're asking, really what they want is for me to guarantee something. Like, if
Right.
you do this, here's 3 steps, do it, and it'll take you 45 minutes each, and then you'll have your solution, and it's guaranteed, or your money back from life, because it's like, who's gonna the money back guarantee of just your life, like, who's gonna give you your money back? But
Right.
it's like, but the thing is, what I can guarantee you is that if you're moving in a direction of what you want, of the life that you want, like a life that's a dream life to you, if you're moving in that direction your whole life, you will be happy. You know, like, if you're
Right.
moving in that direction and you're not like making yourself unhappy on purpose, you'll be happy because, one, being self determination is way better than the alternative. Like, making your own choices is way better. And for the most part, you can make choices.
Right.
Um, I remember people always find, like, when you say something like that, um, people will always give, but what about this? But what about this? What about this? There's this, I made this post on Facebook years ago, and it was called,
Uh, Let me see. Did we lose you again? Maybe lock up. Hmm. Let me see here. Uh, Not sure what's with the technology there. Looks like we're getting a bad connection there. Drop call. Um, Let me see something real quick. Um, Shoot, I had a couple questions, a couple more questions I wanted to ask. Hey, we've talked about a whole lot of different things today, and there's many things that touched on creativity and different things like that that I think are so wonderful, um, that you can apply to your life for living your best life. Um, and the be the change concept that we've been talking about is something that I think is so important. So if you want to live your best life, find systems that you can create in your own life to be the best you that you can be. That's what this is all about, really. And so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to get Samax on here. Let's see. Let me try one more time real quick. Say. But there's so much that we can learn about ourselves. To me, I believe a lot of this is about self-mastery, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But you know, understanding yourself is not always easy work. It's not always something that you can find out in society to teach you, or even in school to teach you potentially. And so it can get a little tricky there. But let me see. Smex is trying to hop back on here. So one thing that I will say until he gets back on is, hey, if this is if you're interested in being interviewed about talking about living your best life and what that may look like, I welcome you to join me. Down in the comments, say, hey, I'm interested. I want to talk. I'd like to be on your show. And I will be happy to put you on. I'll reach out to you. We'll have a conversation, see where it goes. I'll also say, if you, if you like what I'm doing here, definitely like the video, share it with friends or anyone that needs to hear this message if it's inspirational and can help someone. And also, if you're ever on YouTube, please go and subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to grow that. It's small, but we're getting there. And let me see. I think some X's coming back in here. so here we go. Yeah, man.
Yeah, it was I'm pretty sure it was my computer that was causing the problem. My computer's an old girl, but I'm on my phone now, so we'll see how that goes.
Okay, well, so let me ask you a question here. I kind of throw out a curveball question to people sometimes, where you can choose one of these. If you watch one of the episodes, you may have seen it before, where I throw out 3 questions. Where do you find the most joy? What inspires you, and what is your superpower? And being that you are in comics and drawing superheroes and stuff like that, I'd love to hear the superheroes question. But
I'll answer all 3 of them. I'll answer all 3 of them because the first one, where do I find the most joy, is undisputed and very easy, and that's my daughter. My daughter. I don't know how it is for all parents, but like for me, I learned a long time ago that my daughter's she'll turn 14 next month.
Oh, nice.
In September, right? It's still August, right? Yeah.
Right.
So when she was a baby, I didn't feel like, I didn't think I had any problems, because I would just, like, if I was upset about anything, like, I could just hold her and look at her and it would just go away. And that still like that. I mean, she doesn't like it. You know what I mean? And I try not to be like make my daughter like solve my problems or whatever. but just like, I've learned like how to just kind of talk her into talking to me, because she likes to give like short answers and not really talk that much. And she's a teenager now, so but just if I just say, hey,
I know the things that she can't resist talking about. Genshin Impact is her favorite video game. I can get her to talk for straight 15 minutes by asking a question about Genshin Impact. And I'll do it. Like, I'm not above it, because when she talks to me, like, I just feel like everything's okay. And
Right.
so that's the easy. Tell me the second question.
What inspires you?
Really just life, you know. I like to, like I said, I like to read and watch. Like, I watch YouTube videos by people who are smarter than me. Um, I like, just philosophy and stuff like that. My nature is to kind of disassemble things, you know, ideas. So if you're talking to me and you're telling me stuff, everybody is smart. Everybody has wisdom. So I'll disassemble like the components, and I'll throw out the stuff that I don't like or that I can't use, and then I keep the rest. Um, as a person that is a professional like storyteller, being an artist, um, you want to have as much stuff as possible to be inspired by, and
Right.
to like more tools in your toolbox, to to use. And so I really do what I can to have a lot to go from. So that's part of like what I said before, like um, when I was very, very devout, like it was easy, like people that are religious often kind of look down on other people that don't believe like them. And I had really, the way that I was trained was that everybody, like you should talk to everybody like that person might be God,
Right.
like God might be standing there like testing you. And so eventually you stop being afraid that God's testing you, and you just start liking everybody, and and seeing what's good in people. And a lot of times people will mess around and inspire you if you let them. I would say, as far as a superpower, I do think that for me, for anyone, your superpower comes from the combinations of your experience, your education, everything you've been through, the things that you suffered, and the combinations of those that are unique, because uniqueness is your power. For me, I think it's the solution focus and just being a creative person. I mean, as an artist, I think that all artists are leaders on some level, writers. And when I say artists, I'm really talking about um, anybody that's operating in an artful way, because Scott McCloud says that art is when you do anything more than what's absolutely necessary for survival. So
Mm.
most people are pretty artsy when they cook, you know. Um, Dancing is artsy, like people that walk and they do it with they have like a swag to them or whatever. That's art, like they don't have to do that. They're doing it. So I think for me, just kind of being able to, like, a long time ago, I started thinking of like disassembling things and reassembling them and breaking them down into components for my later use. You know, um, Instead of being frustrated about, you get like writer's block and things like that. Um, it's it's just because you're not impressed with yourself anymore, and you're trying to be better than you are. Like, just be who you are, um, and just be okay with doing something that's bad. You know what? Love is my superpower. I'm gonna tell you why. Because when people talk about talent, when I was a little boy, I don't think I drew any better than anyone else. Like, almost, you look around a bunch of kids in elementary, in kindergarten. My drawings, I was not like a genius. you know but I love drawing. I when I love something, it makes it where enduring is not a big deal, and not quitting is probably the difference between me and other people. In a lot of areas where people think I have achieved something that's a big deal, it's only just because I don't quit just because I'll slow down. I'll slow to almost a crawl, like those ninjas that they think they're dead, but they're just heart beating real slow. Like that's me. Like I'll slow down but I don't quit because it's like, this is what I want, you know, and
Right.
being able to be deluded by your love for something. You're not good enough yet, but I would never accept that I wasn't good enough, if I wanted to do it. I would just not be good enough until I was good enough, and just stay with it.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think just being passionate about something and if you can, and I just being a person that builds bridges because of that, because I do the business the way I operate. I have people that I would consider customers that buy products and clients that buy services, and sometimes I help my clients sell the products that we make because I have an understanding and I pursue an understanding of customers and clients, you know. Um, and all of that goes back to just I want to love my life and so right now I'm in a position where I think I love my clients. Like I work with people and I love them. I love what they're trying to do. They're all different. Like they probably wouldn't like each other, but I love that. I like being in that position um where love is the best reason to get up in the morning, or like when you don't feel like doing something, do it anyway. You can be honest with somebody when you love them. Like it's like, okay, did you do this? No, I didn't do it, but I'm gonna do it. And they know that I'm gonna do it, you know, because they know how I am with them and that I care about the things that they care about. So love is a good power to have. If you can go in that direction, you probably should. So much of like we're trained to go against our own self-interest, like that's better, you know, but go ahead and follow that, what you love sometimes. It'll make things easier, if you're passionate about what you're doing or about who you're working with, who you're spending your time with. It makes it where the work isn't so hard, you know.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question. You've already shared a whole lot of wisdom and great nuggets, I think, in our
Oh, thank you.
conversation. But one of the things that I always try and do on these calls is ask the guest if they can give a tip for viewers. So, what is one thing that you would recommend people do, and maybe that's what you just did, to live their best life? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I said it before, but I mean, I think that one of the more powerful things is just to take a little bit more ownership. Like if you take responsibility for the experience you're having, and
Hmm.
just resist the urge to blame other people for what's going on, even if it is a clear path where you can blame somebody. Just, if you could take responsibility for it, then it becomes not so overwhelming. And sometimes it's like getting out or something. I had a I had a client one time who he I went to bed at like 1 a.m., right? And then I woke up maybe at like 5 a.m. And in that space, he had texted me like 25 times, like 30 times. And it was like he had went through a whole gamut of emotions, like, hey, I want you to do, what do you think about this? To, why aren't you answering? You got a lot of nerve and all this other stuff. And then back down to, well, you know what? Maybe I'm overreacting, and all that. And I woke up and I was like, this man's crazy. And so like I was telling my mom about it. And then my mom was like ready to get on my bandwagon of like, this guy is crazy and how dare he and all this other stuff. And so she started saying, I said, you know what? This is my fault. And she said, what? It'd be your fault that this dude is like, I said, well, I could tell he was a little bit, you know, I could tell he was kind of wild or whatever when we were talking at the beginning, but I wanted the job. So I took his money before I set boundaries.
Hmm.
And it wasn't like I just said, well, that's fine for him to behave that way because I didn't tell him not to. That's not what I mean by taking responsibility. I'm not saying take the blame, but just take responsibility. Like, what can I do to make my life better like I want. You know, your friends and your family and the people around you, and there's always somebody on the, the news or whatever, they're going to give you an out of just it's somebody else's fault. Whichever party you didn't vote
Right.
for is the problem. Whichever groups you're not a part of are the problem. All these intolerant people are the problem. You know, uh, you know, they are part of the problem, but why is it affecting you the way it is? And again, getting just back down to not to beat yourself up, because that's the other thing. Like, I think it's so much like blaming and shame and stuff, but you don't have to blame yourself. You don't have to shame, but just say, hey, am I taking this? Is there a better way for me to see this? Is there a, is there a way to look at this that I would like better? I didn't even know that was an option for most of my life. And I just thought, like, I saw it how it was, and everything sucked. Like people will say the world is going to hell, or the world is just this, and this. And it's like, well, maybe it is and maybe it isn't, but humans have survived through much more worse environments and more worse like situations than what we're dealing with right now. So, maybe you could just like kind of say, okay, instead of, because it's like, sure, there's lots of people out there that you can blame for everything. And I remember before he even really was winning anything, the media fell in love with Donald Trump because he's so inflammatory. And he's so fun. Even if you don't like him, he was just so fun to them to talk about. And, like you don't have to, he doesn't have to affect every aspect of your personal life, you know. So just being a bit more taking responsibility and making a part of your life thinking about that, like, kind of like a ritual. Like I could think about, like, is there, or when you get upset about something, because that's part of it is mindfulness, right? So I'm assuming that most of the people that are watching you maybe already are kind of interested in that. Mindfulness has been so powerful for me because it made it possible for me in the middle of being upset or being sad or being whatever to step back and say, okay, I'm feeling this. Is something causing this, or am I keeping it alive right now? Because
Right.
you get upset about something, a lot of times you could just let it pass. And that's what I learned since I started like meditating and being more mindful, is that when I feel strong emotions, it doesn't have to be a tidal wave that controls the whole rest of my day, just because it showed up for whatever reason. And the thing is, when you start looking at it, there's a lot of stupid reasons why things are happening. Because it's hot, because you're hungry,
Right.
because you're having some kind of pain. You forgot you got pain medication. You forgot to take it, or something like that is the reason why you're deciding that the whole world, you're assigning all this meaning to biological feelings,
Right.
that you can solve, that you can like have a Snickers and now everything is fine, And so just obviously to me like mindfulness, but then just taking ownership, um, and saying, okay, what can I do to make I can't fix world hunger. I can't fix everything there is, but I can, get myself under control. And like you said earlier, make that be a better, all the people that I'm touching, they get to have a better life just because of me changing me. One of the things that used to upset me a lot was people would say,
Right.
like somebody would look at all my stuff for free. They wouldn't buy anything. You know, they wouldn't do anything that helps me, right? But then they would approach me and go, I'm a huge fan of yours and I love you and I love your work and I love whatever. And I was like, well, why don't you buy something? That's how it feels. But I learned that the fact that the way that I was doing things was helping them was telling me that there was opportunities for me. But it's not their job to figure out how they can support me. It's my job to to offer something that they want so much that they don't even ask, like that they're asking me how they can have it, how
Right.
they can buy it before I put a thing up. And so, one, I'm just happier now that because I was a person who would get upset at a very gushing compliment. Like I'll be like, well, my life is not fixed. So you need to fix my life if you're such a big fan or you love me so much or you're my biggest fan. You need to pay my light bill. You know, and so I wouldn't say that, but that's how I would feel
Right.
because I had a
Right.
bad attitude. So it's like just taking more ownership and not so that you can have it as a burden, but because it will lift your burden. Like you won't feel like a victim of everybody all the time. And people who try and manipulate you when you own your condition, you know, that it's yours. So like somebody can't come and say, "Well, I thought you were a good person, but you're really not a good person." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm sorry." Like, sorry. It's fine. Like I don't care. And it's not I care about the human condition as much as I ever did, but I accept, with humility that there is limits to what I can do. And to the extent if I want to increase my effectiveness, I have to be better, and that's a better place to put my focus. And anybody that watches somebody like you, or I mean, maybe me, I don't know, they would see that. You know what I mean? Like it's like when you start being a better person yourself, you can have a better impact. Like if you make more money, you can give away money. If your health is better, you can, you're more fun to be around and you can be inspiring to people, you know. But so just that my tip is just to look for opportunities, not even just like it's a responsibility and oh no, but look for opportunities to take ownership of your experience, of the life that you're living, of your own body, of the environment around you. You know what I mean? Um, and that's something that I think never stops. Like what winds up is you feel like you own the world after a while because you wind up, that's where you get power from. But it starts from you, you know.
Right.
People that walk into a room and everybody wants to do what they want, but they're not the boss, you know. Um, that was one of the things that I experienced sometimes. Because I'll walk into a room and people wanted for me to make a decision. I'm like, man, I'm not in charge of this, you know. But it was because of just the intangible thing that comes from doing that. And,
Right.
if you try and get control, but of other people, um, but you don't have control of yourself, like those are the people that we make fun of, like, because they think that they're something that they're not, you know. And it's like, don't be like that. Just take care of yourself and, you know, take ownership of your experience.
Yeah, I think that's awesome and so valuable, uh, and overlooked, you know, sometimes anyhow.
Yeah,
Uh,
sure.
well, let me ask you where can someone follow you or find you, or where's a good
Yeah. So if you just
place to connect
if
if
they just
someone
look for me
wanted
on
to check out some of your
Facebook,
work
is
and
probably the best place. I'm always there. I have two Facebook pages. One is the Max, like as Facebook.com/the Max. That's my personal page. Probably pretty useless, but I accept a friend request if you're nice. Um, Samax Amen is my business page. And that's a hub, you know what I mean? Like I do a lot. I have samaxamen.com. I have a website. I almost never update it. So Facebook right now is probably the place that gets updated the most. I have an Instagram. I don't really take a lot of pictures and I don't post on it that much. But you can follow me there too, because I have moments. But the Facebook is probably the best. On Twitter as Ghetto Manga, because Ghetto Manga is a whole other thing that I do, but it's just me doing it. So you get access to me that way. Um, I always tell people if you just Google me, if you Google my name, you'll find me. You know, I'm on LinkedIn. I don't go on there that much. It's too boring. People are their most boring selves on LinkedIn, man. Anyway, that wasn't the question. So yeah, you can. That's the best way probably is Facebook. So I know that you have a. That's how we met on Facebook, me and you, in a
Right,
in a
right.
in a
And
group.
just out of curiosity, do you recall where we connected or how we connected? Do you have any idea?
Absolutely, yes. So Rachel, something or other. I can't remember her last
Oh,
name
yes,
this
yes.
second.
That's
She
right.
did a thing, a challenge called 100 Perfect People,
That's
where
right. That's
you as a business, like, you're looking for customers, and both of us did that, like, did that challenge,
right.
and we did. I don't know how we got assigned to each other, or I don't remember, as accountability partners, and I mean, you were easy for me to remember, so so we became friends on Facebook because of that, and then uh, it was, I was doing, like, as part of, like I said, I came into, like, mindfulness and meditation and stuff largely because of business, like, business coaching, and them being like, look, you're gonna be herding a lot of cats and juggling a lot of stuff. You need to get your mind right. Like, it's um, having your mind on straight is what did they say? In business, you're your most valuable asset, you know, that you'll ever have is yourself.
Right.
And so work on yourself as much as you work on your business. And they kind of really convinced me about it. And then as I became more and more interested in it, like, uh, so running into somebody, because at the time that's what you were developing was hella good. And so, like, uh, that was interesting to me, and it felt good. It felt right, like it was the right time. Like, good timing. Um,
Right.
so I I was doing like uh probably a comic strip market, like a tool, which I've since, like, that's not mostly what what I do or whatever, which makes it easy for, it was forgettable. But you had something going that was easy to remember. And again, like, most of the people were from different places. And so I'm always surprised when I run into somebody that's from Texas on the internet. It just seems funny to run
Right.
into
I think
people
that was
that live
one of the
nearby.
things that was cool because you're just a stone throw away. I mean,
Right.
Waco's about what, an hour or so away from I think where
About
I'm at.
an hour and 20 minutes.
Okay. And so I was like connecting with someone that's
Right.
kind of close in when we connect through some different kind of situation. But I always love creative people and artists and things like that. So uh, yeah, but anyhow, so thank you so much for your time and talking to me and sharing some wisdom and some insight into what you do and what you think Hellagood Life means and all that kind of stuff. It's been a real joy talking to you. So as always.
Yeah, yeah. It was a lot of fun. Like I said, I mean, I really, I came into it going, yeah, I'll just talk to Dale for a while. you know? And so I know it'd be easy.
Yeah,
I hope
yeah.
that people are able to get some value out of it, even with all the stopping and starting with the technology.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, I tried to fill some of the spots and keep things rolling and
Right.
whatnot. So hopefully we'll be good there. But there's a lot of good stuff on this call. So I appreciate that. And again, thank you for your time and we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Hey, thank you everyone for watching. And again, if you have any questions on the replay, you can post them in the comments. If you want to be on the show, reach out and say, hey, I'm interested. And I'll reach out to you and maybe you'll be the next person on the show. So anyhow, peace, love, and respect to you. And